a city of dazzling skyscrapers and vibrant streets. But beneath the glittering facade lies a dark secret, a secret hidden in the shadows of luxury and wealth. This is the story of COFFIN apartments, a shocking reality for thousands in one of the world's most expensive cities. Imagine living in a space smaller than a parking spot, a space barely big enough to lie down in. This is the harsh reality for residents of COFFIN apartments, also known as cage homes. These tiny, cramped units are often no more than 6 feet long and 4 feet wide, resembling nothing more than metal cages stacked on top of each other. These inhumane living conditions are a stark reminder of the city's severe housing crisis. In a place where land is a luxury few can afford, COFFIN apartments have become a last resort for the city's poorest and most vulnerable residents. The existence of these cramped and unsanitary dwellings raises serious questions about inequality and social justice in one of the world's wealthiest cities. It's time to shine a light on this hidden crisis and demand better for the people trapped within these metal cages. Step inside a COFFIN apartment and you'll enter a world stripped bare of basic human dignity. These tiny, windowless cubicles offer little more than a space to sleep and store a few meager belongings. The air is thick with the smell of sweat, mildew, and despair. The walls are thin, offering little privacy or respite from the constant noise and commotion of the surrounding units. Imagine sharing a single communal bathroom with dozens of strangers. Imagine cooking your meals on a hot plate inches from your bed. Imagine never having enough space to stretch out your legs or catch a moment of peace and quiet. This is the daily reality for those living in COFFIN apartments, a testament to the desperate lengths people will go to in search of a roof over their heads. The proliferation of COFFIN apartments in Hong Kong is a direct result of the city's severe housing crisis. Years of soaring property prices, coupled with a widening gap between the rich and poor, have created a perfect storm for this crisis to unfold. Hong Kong boasts one of the highest population densities in the world. Land is scarce and therefore incredibly valuable. This has driven up property prices to astronomical levels, making home ownership an impossible dream for most ordinary citizens. The government's public housing program, while well-intentioned, has failed to keep pace with the overwhelming demand. This has left thousands of low-income families and individuals with few options but to seek shelter in the city's most undesirable and often dangerous living spaces. COFFIN apartments, while shocking to outsiders, have become a grim necessity for those struggling to survive in a city that has priced them out. The stark contrast between COFFIN apartments and standard housing in Hong Kong highlights the city's deep-seated inequality. While the wealthy enjoy spacious apartments with breathtaking views, those living in poverty are relegated to cramped and unsanitary cages. Imagine living in a space smaller than a standard prison cell. Now imagine paying exorbitant rent for the privilege. This is the reality for many COFFIN apartment residents who often pay more per square foot than those living in luxury high-rises. The lack of privacy, sanitation, and basic amenities in COFFIN apartments stands in stark contrast to the comfortable living conditions enjoyed by many in Hong Kong. This stark disparity serves as a constant reminder of the deep divisions that exist within the city. The existence of COFFIN apartments is a blight on Hong Kong's conscience, a shameful reminder that even in one of the world's wealthiest cities, poverty can be found lurking in the shadows. Section 5. The high cost of living, small impacts on health and well-being. Living in a COFFIN apartment takes a devastating toll on both the physical and mental health of its residents. The cramped, unsanitary conditions breed a host of health problems, while the lack of privacy and social isolation lead to depression, anxiety, and a sense of hopelessness. Imagine trying to sleep in a room with no windows, the air thick with humidity and the stench of mildew. Imagine sharing a single toilet and shower with dozens of strangers, the floors constantly wet and slippery. The lack of proper ventilation and sanitation in COFFIN apartments leads to respiratory problems, skin infections, and the spread of infectious diseases. The cramped living conditions exacerbate existing health conditions and make it nearly impossible to recover from illness or injury. Beyond the physical toll, the psychological impact of living in such a confined and isolating environment is profound. Residents often report feeling trapped, hopeless, and forgotten by society. The stress of living in poverty, coupled with the constant struggle for basic dignity, takes a heavy toll on their mental well-being. Section 6. Trapped in tin stories from Hong Kong's cage dwellers. Behind the statistics and shocking images are real people with real stories. Stories of resilience, despair, and the will to survive against all odds. Meet Mr. Wong, a retired janitor who has lived in a coffin apartment for over a decade. He shares his tiny space with his meager belongings, his only companions, the ghosts of his past, and the constant hum of the city outside. "I don't dream anymore," he says, his voice cracking with emotion. "I just hope to see the day I can afford a place where I can stretch my legs." Then there's Miss Lee, a single mother who works tirelessly to provide for her 2 young children. They share a single coffin apartment, the children sleeping on a mattress on the floor while she takes the top bunk. "I just want my children to have a better life," she says, tears welling up in her eyes. "I want them to have space to play, to dream, to be children." These are just 2 of the countless stories of struggle and resilience that emerge from the shadows of Hong Kong's coffin apartments. These stories serve as a powerful reminder that behind every statistic is a human being deserving of dignity, respect, and a safe and affordable place to call home. Section 7. A city's shame, the social implications of coffin homes. The existence of coffin apartments in Hong Kong is not just a housing crisis, it's a moral crisis. It's a stark indictment of a system that has failed to provide for its most vulnerable citizens, leaving them trapped in a cycle of poverty and despair. The presence of these inhumane living conditions in one of the world's wealthiest cities exposes the deep flaws in our social fabric, highlighting the growing gap between the haves and the have-nots. The longer we tolerate the existence of coffin apartments, the more we normalize suffering and inequality. We become desensitized to the plight of our fellow human beings, accepting their suffering as an inevitable consequence of economic forces beyond our control. But this is not inevitable. It is a choice to prioritize profit over people, to value economic growth over social justice, and it's a choice we can no longer afford to make. Section 8. Breaking the chains, seeking solutions for affordable housing. The crisis of coffin apartments demands immediate and comprehensive solutions. Solutions that address both the immediate need for safe and affordable housing and the systemic issues that have created this crisis in the first place. We need to increase the supply of public housing, making it more accessible to low-income families and individuals. We need to implement rent controls to prevent landlords from exploiting tenants and driving up prices. We need to invest in innovative housing solutions such as micro-apartments and co-living spaces that provide dignified and affordable living options for those struggling to make ends meet. But most importantly, we need to address the root causes of inequality and poverty that have made coffin apartments a grim reality for so many. We need to invest in education, job training, and social safety nets that provide people with the opportunity to lift themselves out of poverty. Section 9. A call to action, ending the coffin home crisis. The plight of those living in Hong Kong's coffin apartments is a call to action for all of us. We cannot stand idly by while our fellow human beings are denied their basic right to safe and dignified housing. We must demand better from our leaders, urging them to prioritize affordable housing and social justice. We must hold them accountable for creating a society that works for everyone, not just the privileged few. We must amplify the voices of those living in the shadows, sharing their stories and raising awareness about this hidden crisis. We must challenge the status quo and demand a more just and equitable world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. The fight for affordable housing is a fight for human dignity. It's a fight for justice, equality, and a world where no one is forced to live in a cage.